my, good morning. This is Judith Lay welcoming you to Manx Radio and to the podcast of this week's edition of At Your Service. Manx Radio! Ruth Rice returns today with the last few letters in her A to Z of Wellbeing, and Caroline Salmon has an invitation to a day that offers something for everyone. There's another packed notice board at the end of the programme, and as always, there's music. On some Christian church calendars, today is celebrated as the feast of Christ the King. It's also the last Sunday of the church year. Next Sunday is the first day of a new church year and the first Sunday in the season of Advent, the 4 weeks of preparation leading up to the great celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ. Our first hymn today celebrates the kingship of Christ, not an earthly king, but a king of greater strength, compassion and understanding than we could ever imagine. The King of love my shepherd is. The Celebration Choir and The King of Love My Shepherd Is. Today is also known as Stir-Up Sunday, which is really less about church and more about making Christmas puddings. Stir-Up Sunday takes its name from the beginning of a prayer used today in traditional church services that use the Book of Common Prayer. It begins with the words, "Stir up, we beseech thee, O Lord, the wills of thy faithful people, that, richly bearing the fruit of good works, we may, by you, be richly rewarded." Most recipes for Christmas puddings advise us to mix and cook it well in advance of Christmas and then reheat it on Christmas Day. That prayer, called the Collect, the words of which would be the same on this day every year, served as a useful reminder that today, 5 weeks before Christmas, is perfect timing for stirring up the Christmas pudding mixture. This became a tradition which often involved the whole household, with everyone having a stir of the mixture, and it was when silver coins were often added to the mixture. Finding one in your helping of pudding on Christmas Day was considered to be very lucky. Many, many years ago, my grandma used to make our Christmas pudding and put in some silver threepenny bits. I clearly remember that we all ate our helping of pudding very carefully. I think we were more worried about avoiding a broken tooth than having the good luck that might have come with finding the little coin. Manx-born Ruth Rice has lived off the island for many years, but she has family here and a large part of her is, I believe, still firmly rooted deep in Manx soil. She takes every opportunity to come back, even if only for a short time, and it's been a pleasure to welcome her to the programme each week, sharing letters from her personal alphabet of well-being. This alphabet grew out of her work with Renew Wellbeing, the charity that Ruth founded following the breakdown of her own mental health some 12 years ago. And whilst all she does is underpinned by her own deep Christian faith, she offers to everyone, of any faith or none, the tips and coping strategies that she's found helpful. It seems appropriate that this week Ruth shares some final thoughts to complete the alphabet, mindful of the fact that Christmas can be a difficult time for many people for many reasons, something that's understood at Renew Wellbeing. Simple cafe-style safe spaces run by local churches where it's okay not to be okay, where everyone is welcome, no one is judged or labelled, but instead each person is gently helped to find their own path to mental and emotional well-being through things like sharing hobbies, enjoying times of peace and relaxation, taking professional help where it's needed, and making friendships. Here on the island, we have Renew cafes in the Methodist Church in Peel, opposite the Centenary Centre in Athol Street. And there's another one at The Well, next door to Broadway Baptist Church here in Douglas.
V in the A to Z of Ruth is for VIP, very important person. When I was growing up in the church in the early days, we used to get really excited about a visiting preacher who was a very important person. And yet at the same time, I also saw my lovely parents model to me that every person is a very important person, that we didn't treat some people with more respect than others. And I'm so grateful for this. Because one of the things that I love now in the Renew movement, as we see people come through our doors and we don't need to know their mental health diagnosis, we just need to know their name and what they'd like to have a go at. And the strength-based approach to mental health stuff has been so lovely for me too, because everyone's a very important person and everybody has got more to them than the one thing that's not right with them. Everybody is a masterpiece of God's making. And so treating everybody with the same respect we would a very important person, because everyone is a very important person. I just think that's been a really beautiful thing to do. And I've learnt so much from those people that maybe in the past I would have been a bit patronising towards. V is for very important person. You're one as well. Y in the A to Z of Ruth is for a Hebrew word, Yahweh. Yahweh is the Hebrew name of God, and I really love the Hebrew language. It's just one of the things I've learned to love. I did a little bit of study some years ago, And I do like languages anyway, but Hebrew is just such a rich language. If you look up the odd word, just Google it on Bible Hub if you're reading some stuff in the Psalms, which are just those amazing, beautiful poems and songs and prayers in the middle of the Bible. Anyway, the word Yahweh, which is the word for God, they weren't even allowed to really say God's name back in the day, couldn't write it down. And Yahweh in the Hebrew is like breathing out, breathing in, Yahweh. So knowing that God is breath, He is the very breath of us, is the essence of us, is encapsulated in this word Yahweh, which we lose, don't we, in our 3-letter translation, God. I think there's something really rich about engaging with original language in which things are written, if you can manage to do it. And this word Yahweh just fascinates me, that in the very way we breathe out and breathe in, God is present. Y is for Yahweh. X in the A to Z of Ruth is for X-ray. Several months ago, I tripped on a paving slab, and broke my foot in 3 places. I also tore all my ligaments, and I'm still under the physio months and months later. It's quite a depressing thing, isn't it? A weight-bearing injury. Many of you will know that. What I didn't do when I broke my foot was just say, come on, pull yourself together and try and fix it myself. What I did do, I got an ambulance because I was in such pain. It was terrible pain. But anyway, I'm a bit of a wimp, obviously. I then got x-rays. I got the foot set. I did what the doctors told me. I got some proper help. It interests me, the difference between that experience and years ago when I was struggling with my mental health and took months to go and find some help. It's tricky, isn't it, to ask for help when it's our mental and emotional health, but not so tricky when it's our physical health. It'd be great, wouldn't it, if we asked for help when we needed it? An x-ray that could show where the brokenness was inside us. Maybe that's sort of what God does for me, as He can show up the brokenness when I spend time with Him and bring some healing and some wholeness, some acceptance that I need to slow down. When my foot was broken, that tiny little bones in my foot, the whole of my body needed to slow down. I think that's true too. When there's some mental and emotional struggles in our communities, we all need to slow down so that healing can take place.
Thank you, Ruth Rice, sharing a few final thoughts on aspects of mental and emotional well-being inspired by her own personal faith. And Ruth will be back with us in the new year with a brand new series. She'll be looking into the Bible at the Book of Psalms, and it will be strongly Manx. Next Sunday, we'll be joined by author and broadcaster Richard Littledale, a retired Baptist minister who'll be sharing a series of weekly reflections for each of the 4 Sundays in Advent. They'll be taken from his book called 37 Kings and a Budgerigar. I wonder if you can guess what is the theme that links them all together. Listen from next Sunday onwards and find out. My next guest is Caroline Salmon, a Methodist local preacher and the driving force behind the very lively group Manx Methodist Women. Caroline believes passionately that our churches should be centres of informed action in the wider world and energetic outreach in our local communities. Caroline and her team have organised a special event that's being held next Saturday in Peel Methodist Church, and Caroline joins me now to tell us more about it.
Yes, so we're at Peel Methodist Church on Saturday the 26th of November, and we're going to be looking at the 3 areas of gender equality, quality education and climate action. And we're looking at those in the light of a charity in Malawi. We're raising money for girls who have left education, they're teenage girls, and there's a charity that is supporting them. It's called Aglet, and we're working in partnership with the Methodist charity All We Can to raise money for these girls and their children so that their education can continue, having dropped out of school. So we're raising money, but we also want to have a day of learning about those 3 areas I've mentioned, those 3 sustainable development goals. And we're going to be also doing creative things. We're going to be thinking about how those things impact us personally, and what we think about them personally, and here on the Isle of Man, and also globally. Learning more about gender justice, quality education for all, and climate, and the effects of those things on us, on the island, and on the world. And doing creative stuff, as I say, a bit of badge making, some printing, all sorts of things, and being challenged to think, well, what difference can I make? We hope that people will take away with them a challenge for them to take action in a small or a bigger way.
It's true that it is information that we often lack. But what interests me about these 3 things is that they might sound like 3 separate issues, but they're not. They're all linked together very, very closely, aren't they?
They certainly are. I mean, the more you listen to people that are involved across the world, the climate action, the effects of climate is having huge impacts on people. And so that's got to be in all thinking. And of course, gender justice, the fact that women and girls are not treated equally, has a huge impact. Women are half the population, but they don't own half the wealth. They don't receive half the education. You know, things are just so not balanced. And as a Christian, as a woman of God, I believe in a God who wants everybody to thrive. That's God's intention for the world. God's made a beautiful, wonderful world. And God loves that world, loves everything in the world, the whole of creation and all people. And God wants us all to thrive. And if I look at the life of Jesus, he empowered women. He called women daughters of Abraham, that no one else had ever done that before. So for me, my faith is totally linked up with action to try and make the world a fairer place and for justice, particularly for women. That's been something that, you know, I've sort of learnt about and realised the great inequalities. And so I would call myself a Christian feminist. And I'm proud of that. And feminism's been a bit of a dirty word, but I don't think it is a dirty word. I think it's about fairness and loving men and women together, knowing that we're both made in the image of God. We're both loved by God, and God wants for all people to thrive.
And it's unlocking the potential that is there, because alongside gifted men are gifted women who are innovators and hard workers and creative thinkers. But unless they are liberated by their education, we're never going to see what they're capable of doing. In Malawi, one of the poorest countries in the world, and it'll only be changed around by education and creative solutions to the problems that they've got, won't it?
Absolutely. Education is just so important, isn't it? And we want everyone to get the best possible education that they can. And the reality is that girls so often miss out on that, and they drop out of education across the world so often. Or some countries, of course, deny education to girls. There's that other whole aspect. And the way society treats girls and get blamed in rape situations. You know, these things are also interconnected, aren't they? When we hear the way that women are interviewed about issues of rape, you know, these things are not separate, are they? And girls drop out of education for many reasons, but so often tied up with gender issues and lack of equality.
I've had a look at your publicity for next Saturday, and the thing that appeals to me about it is the variety. It's a very varied programme, as you say, from craft through to talks and discussions and lunch as well. There will be something to appeal to everybody. But you've also got a guest speaker, haven't you?
We have. We've got a lady called Ruth Parrott who's coming from across, and she is going to tell us more about the charity that we're raising the money for. And we're really excited to have her with us. She's part of the organisation Methodist Women in Britain, and we're delighted that she's coming to be with us, Manx Methodist women here on the island. And she's going to be with us on the Sunday as well, and there's going to be worship at Peel Methodist Church on the Sunday morning too. But yes, it's lovely when we have people from across, isn't it, to share with us and help us to see the wider picture, both in the UK, the British Isles, and also across the world.
Let's look at the practical details. We know that it's next Saturday, and I think maybe we ought to stress that whilst this is being organised by your good self and a team of Methodist women on the island, it's open to absolutely everybody, isn't it? People of any church or no church connection at all. If you're just moderately interested, come along.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we put on the programme, come when you can, go when you must, and for as short or as long as period of time. So we're starting at 10:30 with coffee and biscuits, of course, and then at 11 o'clock we'll be having a short act of worship, and then at 11:20, your good self, Judith, is going to be interviewing Ruth, and so we'll be hearing more about her. And then we'll be going and doing the activities. So it'll be set up as 3 different areas, looking at the climate action, gender justice and quality education. So there'll be kind of 3 stalls, 3 areas with that. And within that, there'll be information and challenges and craft activities to do. And then we'll stop for lunch at 12:30, and that's Malawi themed. So we're trying to include aspects of Malawi within that. And also at 1:03, we are going to stop for silence, because Saturday the 26th is also the day of action for the Mothers' Union. And so it's really nice that we're tying in with Mothers' Union here on the island. And I'm a Methodist woman, but I'm also a member of Mothers' Union. Mothers' Union is calling their members across the world to stop at 1:03 for silence. And then we'll have a short prayer afterwards. And so that's tying in with that in the lunchtime. And then we'll carry on after lunch with those activities and rotating around. You can spend all day on one if you want to, or go to all 3, whatever suits you. Stop in the middle for a coffee and cake again, and then conclude the day with a short act of worship and perhaps answering any final questions, and everything finished by 4. So it's 10:30 till 4, but come for as short or as long a period of time as you like. And everybody, all ages, we're trying to make sure there's activities suitable for everybody. Or just come and be in the lovely space that is Peel Methodist Church. Be with other people and share in lunch. Everybody is very, very welcome.
Caroline, is there a charge for it?
We're asking £10 for adults and £5 for children. That's really for the food, but that is for the charity. So we wouldn't want anyone to feel they can't come because they can't pay the money. But that's what the money's going towards. But please don't let that stop you coming if you can't pay that. It's all the money is, as I say, to go to this charity in Malawi.
Caroline Salmon, thank you very much indeed for joining us today, and really looking forward to being with you next Saturday. Peel Methodist Church from 10:30, everything finishing at 4 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thank you to today's guests, Ruth Rice and Caroline Salmon. And now let's finish with a look at our notice board. Abbeylands Methodist Church family invite you to join them later today as they celebrate their chapel anniversary with a service this afternoon at 3 o'clock. And Sandygate Chapel also have a service this afternoon. It's at 4 o'clock, the new regular time for Sunday services at Sandygate. Tonight, the Mariners Choir is in Trinity Methodist Church at Rosemount here in Douglas for a service at 6:30 at which Reverend Dr. Janet Corlett will preach, and afterwards there'll be the usual generous supper and community hymn singing. The First Church of Christ scientists have their annual Thanksgiving service this week and invite you to join them on Wednesday the 23rd at 6:30 for a joyful celebration giving thanks for God's goodness. The soloist is Terry Qualtrough and there's a warm welcome for all. The church is easy to find right on the corner of Woodbourne and Hillary Roads here in Douglas. Thursday the 24th is another Tabor on Thursday evening at Mount Tabor, Port St Mary Methodist Church. This month it's a quiz night with bacon baps. It starts at 7:30 and the cost is £7 per person. And for those of us in the north, there's a quiz and supper in Bride Chapel this Friday, the 25th of November. Quiz starts at 7:15 in the capable hands of Quizmaster Bobby Clegg, and it'll be followed by a 2-course meal. Cost for everything is just £10 per person. You do need to reserve your tickets, so phone Anne Duggan on 812 470 or message Claire Quayle on 451 692. 451 692. The Justice Choir will meet again this Friday evening at 7 o'clock in Sulby Methodist Church and welcomes everyone who just wants a good sing. It's £3 per session, including refreshments. And Sulby Methodist Church welcome you to a special service for the start of Advent next Sunday morning at 10:30. It'll be led by Reverend Andy Fishburn from Peel. I mentioned last week that the Cranmer Prayer Book Reading Competition will go ahead this year, and it's this coming Saturday in St George's Church here in the centre of Douglas, starting at 2 o'clock. There are classes for 3 age groups, and it's still not too late for children and young people to join in. The best way to do this is to text or phone the organiser, Mrs Jill Qualtrough, on 470 476 470 476. And next Saturday the 26th is clearly the starting day for Christmas fairs. St Olave's Church in Ramsey have their Christmas fair in Ramsey Town Hall next Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. Admission is just £1 and there'll be all kinds of bargains and incredible handmade gifts, as well as tombola, cake stalls and refreshments. Another Christmas fair for all the family will also be next Saturday the 26th. This one is in the Cat with No Tail pub on Johnny Watterson's Lane in Douglas. It's organised by the Sunday at 10 Church, who meet each Sunday morning in the Cat with No Tail pub. But their Christmas fair is next Saturday morning, the 26th, from 10 a.m. to 12 noon, and the £2 entry includes refreshments. Crosby Methodist Chapel Hall is the venue for their Christmas fair and afternoon tea, also next Saturday at 2 o'clock. And as well as a delicious afternoon tea, there'll be cake and gift stalls and a raffle. Admission is £5 with free admission for children. Next weekend, on Saturday the 26th and Sunday the 27th, it's Laxey Christmas Market at venues all around the village, including Christchurch, Laxey. Everywhere will be open on both days from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m, with all kinds of homemade and handmade gifts and foods on sale, and much more. And because Christchurch is one of the main venues for the market, there's no morning service in Christchurch next Sunday. Instead, Canon Hinton Bird will celebrate a service of Holy Communion at 10:30 next Sunday morning in St Adamnan's, Lonnon Old Church. And that's all that we have time for now, but I'll be back tonight at 9 o'clock for Sundown. Easy listening music to round off your weekend, and I'd love you to join me if you can. Do please email me if you've got items for the notice board. My address is judithlay@manxradio.com. So, till whenever we meet again, this is Judith saying thank you for listening, and I wish you and those you love a blessed and peaceful week and a very good morning.